Hi, I'm Josh. This is the CPR garage, and this is my 78 F-150 that now has big block Ford power. Shout out to my nieces and nephews that also watch, who know me as Uncle Josh. The truck's been back on the road now for probably a little over 2,000 miles, and I'm just getting around to finishing up this video. Basically what happened is I ran out of time to put out an episode because I had a trip to take this on all the way to Pikes Peak, Colorado, and which I'll insert some footage of somewhere in the video. Okay, I've got some gasket sealer, gluing that one on the valve cover since I had to lose my studs with those tall valve covers because they need the long bolts that go all the way through their tubes. So I'll just show you real quick. Thought I was good to go with my test in the last video, but where it was actually rubbing the valve cover was like right here and right here. These two intake rockers were rubbing the top of the chrome one. You can see right there and right there. And it's at the top where this kind of, these couple bends are, and it kind of curves and folds in. Those are same height, I think, as a stock valve cover. And I could have just taken them off, taken a ball peen hammer or a body hammer and tapped them out a little bit right there, but Facebook Marketplace to the rescue again. So as soon as that's all tacked up, I'm going to throw that one on. We are no worse for the wear on the rockers, and then we get to find out if this side will clear the booster, because these ones don't. So by my highly scientific calculations, which is the ichrometer, they will fit. Okay, ready to watch me struggle? So they do fit. Insert picture here. I had to loosen the nuts on the brake booster, and I have to pull it out of the way while I slip the valve cover in there, and it's a tight fit, hence the painter's tape. Here we go. Come on, baby. Yeah. So there's that. Let's put that anywhere. I wasn't gonna use these bolts because they like barely bite in there. I actually hardware store and bought some 1/2-inch longer ones that are a little too long, so they need cut down. But now I'm thinking maybe that the fit on those other ones ain't so bad. So let's give her a try. Okay, now that we've got a few issues sorted out, we're gonna run this thing long enough to heat cycle it a couple times and then change the oil. There's the new valve covers. And the problem I was running into was my front float bowl would immediately get sucked dry, and I'll show you the fuel pump mounting later. I had to raise it up because the inlet hose was getting kinked. So the base timing is set. Let's fire this thing up and warm it up a little. Still got no throttle linkage and no throttle return springs, and no clutch linkage. Can't find the gosh dang Z-bar rebuild kit, so that's really what's stopping us from driving this thing right now, is we got no clutch linkage. So let's fire it up and do that. Woo! Fluttered. Ow. Here's my nifty little profesh looking throttle return spring bracket. Yeah, ooh, I just made this out of some junk I had laying around. It's just looks like 1/8-inch aluminum. Bolts to those holes right there that are meant for the stock throttle return spring. So yeah, round your edges and hit it with a wire wheel. Don't be a savage. You don't want to cut yourself on it later. And what I did was I just made a little piece of cardboard for a template, which, oh, here it is. See? Ooh, neat. Okay. Let's bolt that on there, and then I just have these Dorman universal throttle springs from the parts store because they're way cheaper than the ones at the speed parts aisle. So Here we go. Okay, I'm going to show you real quick how to time and stab your distributor when you already have one in there at the timing that you want. We're basically just swapping out this Pertronix junk for my 20-year-old MSD distributor that came out of this truck in the first place. So I can't really get on the crank pulley because of this fan shroud and how tight the 460 is in here. So I'm going to show you how to jump it over on the solenoid and do it that way when you don't have a helper to bump it over. Let's go down. Okay, so I've already got a mark back here where number 1 should be. On Fords with the distributor in the front, number 1 should be at about halfway between 1 and 2 o'clock. So I've already got that unhooked. Make sure for sure that it's in neutral or you could die, because I'm basically bypassing the whole starter circuit right here. So here we go. I'm going to put battery power to the S terminal of the solenoid. Oh, overshot it. Okay. Overshot it again. Okay, now I'm coming up on it. Just gonna do real little. See, as it's coming up to top dead center on 1, it wants to kick back because, yep, it's running into the compression. I just can't quite get it. Maybe I can put some gloves on. Sit tight. Okay. I was able to get it finally. Your situation may vary. So, old Ford pushrod engines, the crank bolt down there that you totally can't see is almost always a 15/16. If you can't get to it, you can try turning the alternator. You can try turning the fan, which this thing has 10-to-1 compression, so that's not a great option. What I was able to do, you know, while still having most of my fingers left, was I took a pry bar and stuck it in the fan spacer in there and used that to keep turning it over. You can see distributor pointer, the rotor is pointed at my mark there, and my Sharpie mark, come on, focus. I'm lined up on my Sharpie mark down there, which is 14 degrees, I believe, or 12? 14. So, good enough. Now, we zip this guy out, drop the new one in there. Okay, hold down is removed. Okay, that's what she should look like. If you have an oil pump drive shaft hanging out of there, then you're in bad shape. Okay, so I've got my number 1 marked with some blue tape with a pen line in it. That's where number 1 is on the rotor. So we want it to be a little bit before that because of the way that the gear rolls down into it. So as this goes down, it should land right about where my mark is. Okay, we are into the cam. And then a lot of times what you'll have on Fords is it doesn't want to go into the oil pump drive. But as long as you are locked into the cam like we are, you won't lose your timing if you bump the engine over. So okay, so now I'm on my mark. Get set go. Just kidding. Or close enough. So I'm going to try to hold the distributor here. And give it a little bump. But I don't have enough hands, so here we go. Fell right in there. Okay, going to remove the tape, and we'll put the cap on and make sure it's still oriented how we want. And then of course when we start it up, we're gonna have to check timing with a light, but there you go. Okay, before I forget to show you this, this is the basics of how the clutch linkage works on my 78 F-150. Other old cars with a manual would be pretty similar. So I've done some repairs, as you see here, because these were all wallered out. So this is the arm that mounts up under the dash to the right side of the clutch pedal shaft. So when you push the clutch, it's like this. You push the clutch, she goes like this, which then pushes down this shaft. She goes just up and down. So it pushes down on that, which goes into this bell crank or Z-bar. So shaft to other end hooks in here. And when you do that, this pivots, or it's probably the other way because it's got a push. So this pivots, and that's what pushes the little, where is that? Anyway, can't find it right now. I've lost the clutch linkage about 5 times during this whole ordeal. So the issue is this is just a steel on steel connection, and these guys grind in each other over time, and it wears down the pin on this end and it wallers out the hole. So what I've done is I welded some more material onto here with the TIG welder and then tried to grind it back down. I just can't. It's really hard to get it perfectly round just with sanders and a file and stuff like that. So I ended up taking these old door pin bushings that I have, and this is the bigger end which goes into this guy, and I've got them so that they're just a press fit and it's mostly round where they are, and that is a nice slip fit into there. So definitely way better than it was. And then the other end is a slip fit into that guy. So we'll put a little grease on them and we will now have bronze bushings at the connection points. So that should be a lot better. So there is the bell crank or the Z-bar. And on the truck, on the transmission bell housing is a bracket, much like this. This one goes on the frame, and this little bushing goes in there, and that's what this swivels on. So gonna clean this guy up a little bit, and I have a rebuild kit that we're gonna install. clip. It's just that easy. Now, of course, we need to put grease on this. This is just like a dust seal that butts up against and tries to keep dirt and water out of there. If these have surface rust, clean them up. I already hit it with my little spray cone. You can pack the entire thing of that full of grease. I really don't think you need to. I'm going to put a little smear on here and then pack this end full so that when I put it on there, it'll just shove whatever it doesn't need into the middle. Now, the other half of this we have to rebuild on the front. I wonder what that hole's for. So, let's do that and install. Okay, I'm going to try to show this to you if I can. So, don't forget your boot. Put that on first before you get it in the truck. There's the lower bushing, and this is how the top goes together. It's easier to just put this together while it's out of the truck. See how nice that, nice and smooth with that little bushing in there. So I'm going to try to show you me fishing this up in there and putting the nut on it, but you know, no guarantees. Okay, let's get this stuff out of the way. Okay, so you are looking up under the dash right now. This is the bottom of the steering column. That's the firewall. This is the brake pedal, brake switch, and that up there is where the clutch rod goes. So I'm going to fish it into the hole in the floor. And then it's slotted, so it only goes on one way. Well, two ways, but the one way would be very, very wrong. Okay, it's not the ratchet I wanted, but it's the one that I could find. Anyway, this nut will bottom out on there, and that's what kind of controls the end play of the clutch pivot in here. So you get the idea. I'll bring you back when we're putting the bottom together. This is what we're looking at under the truck. This is the clutch return spring. This is the Z-bar or equalizer bar or bell crank. And over here is the bracket that goes to the bell housing with the bushing. This is my linkage that I got in here, and I'm thinking that this spring is not strong enough. There's the rod coming through the floor right there. So I'm going to have Roni go ahead and push it down all the way.
Okay.
Did you?
What?
You pushed the clutch all the way?
Yep.
Okay, let off.
Okay.
So it actually pulls it up in order to push this in and disengage the clutch. This is where it stops, but that's how far it needs to go. So I probably need a much stiffer return spring, but not sure that it's gonna do it because it's like leverage wise it's at a disadvantage down here trying to pull the clutch that's all the way up there. I was wrong on the way this works, and the reason that it won't retract all the way. This is a funky extend and return spring. So what it does is it helps you push the clutch that way, and then when you let off, it's supposed to go over center because it pivots at the top there, and that's what helps bring the pedal all the way to the top. But the grooves and tabs and stuff on that bracket that bolts to the clutch pedal or the clutch lever are worn, and you can't buy new ones. So yes, I could weld it up and grind it and mess with it, but I'm not gonna, because I can drive it like this for now. And what you can do is, once you get in fourth gear and you're going to be cruising, stick your foot under the clutch pedal and just pop it up and it'll stay there. But long term, that's not the transmission that's going to be in there anyway. So that's as much as that's going to get fixed. So it's at this point that I became a very bad YouTuber, because I was flat ass out of time, and I had to get the truck done for a yearly classic vehicle trip that I take with my brothers and our wives. At a certain point, right as I was done grinding on the cap corner and ready to start doing filler and primer, I just stopped filming because, you know, I hate to complain about YouTuber problems, but when I film stuff, it takes at least twice as long. So, as you can see, the truck is running and driving. I'm actually doing some carburetor tuning right now, which will be either in this episode or a future one. So, I'll get some drive-bys of it, and I will pull off and talk about the rest of the work that I did before we slam this thing on the road for like a 1,500-mile trip. So what was a surprise? Well, the engine, the whole engine package system, other than the carburetor being way too rich, gave me 0 issues. Another surprise is I went through and rebuilt the steering box, put on new hoses, new power steering pump. I went through everything in the steering because I had almost no assist turning left, especially at low RPM, and I still have that problem. There's the questionable front accessory drive situation that gave me 0 issues. gonna be tempted to say, and don't say it, oh, you got air in the power steering system, you need to bleed it. Well, guess what, bud? I done did. I even did a short on tricks on how to bleed air out of these kind of power steering systems. I'll put it up in one of the top corners. So not only did I do that, I also tried cracking lines loose at the power steering pump. I got a vacuum bleeder to vacuum bleed it, which I did actually get like 2 or 3 air bubbles, but none of it made a bit of difference. I had my pump that I had resealed on here, which was different from the pump that was on the truck when I bought it back, which also did the same thing. And so there was pump that was on it. I resealed a low mile when I had, still did it. Got a new pump from AutoZone, still did it. Rebuilt the steering gear, still did it. All new Teflon rings on the spool valve and all that stuff, because it's an assist problem turning left. And it's still sloppy. And tightening the adjustment screw does not fix that. The only thing that does is make it harder to steer over center, but there's still slop, if that makes sense. But it's higher steering effort. Too stiff. So I'm gonna have to bite the bullet and get a gosh. It sounds like people are shooting at me, but it's just rocks. That's the joys of mud tires. Anyway, I'm gonna have to bite the bullet and get a red top or blue top steering gear. Let me know in the comments who's better, because I think they cost about the same. To the cooling system that I kind of cobbled together. This is a stock 3-row 400 radiator that had been rebuilt not too long ago, and it is a 3-row, so it's the tow package, and it's all copper and brass, and not a lick of trouble. I modified that fan from a different dent side that I had. It's a flex fan, a Flexolite, and I had to modify the fan shroud a little bit because the 460 comes forward farther. I'll stick a little clip in there, but flawless. I mean, this thing with a 185, it's a 180 or 185 thermostat. It runs at 190, maybe tickling 200, like idling in traffic in 100 degrees for like an hour, because we did it. Which my brothers with their cars were about boiling over when this thing was just cool as can be, idling at 190 after blasting down the highway on a 100+ degree day. We got stuck in traffic around Fort Collins and it was terrible. I don't know what the melting point of a 5.3 LS is, but we almost found out in my brother's car, because he was like I think he got up to like 250